Hello. Thanks for taking part in my IELTS Terminator writing course. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the outline of the writing tasks in IELTS. This is for academic IELTS, not for general IELTS. This series of lessons deals with academic IELTS. So if you're taking general IELTS, you need a different course. Task 1 in the IELTS deals with describing a chart, a table, a graph, or a diagram. You need to write about 160 to 170 words for this section of the test. Get used to the idea of how many lines this represents on an A4 piece of lined paper. How can you do this? In your own handwriting, on a piece of A4 lined paper, write a sentence that takes up one line of the paper, or maybe longer. On that line, count how many words are in that line of your own handwriting, and divide the number of words on that line into 160. So let's say you write 10 words to a line on average, and that's pretty much the average. So the number of lines you need to write will be 160 divided by 10, or 16 lines. That's a bit over a third of a page. The examiner will not count how many words you have written. They will see that you write about a third to half a page. And that is what they want to see, because they know that equates to about 160 words. If you write a few more words, it's not a big problem. If you write a few less than 160, it's not a big problem. But don't write too much. Some people go on and on and on with this. If you do that, you'll lose time to do the next part. But also don't write too little. Either way, you will lose score. IELTS is a strategy exam. Practice makes perfect. Part 1 writing is probably the most boring thing you will do in IELTS. Why? Why is it boring? Well, it's because you're describing a set of numbers, and you need to talk about only what you see. No opinions are needed. In fact, don't waste your time giving any opinions on this part. Keep your opinions for the Part 2 essay, where you are expected to show an opinion. In this part, Part 1, you will be describing only facts, but you may need to be able to make some assumptions from these facts. Take 20 minutes on this part, no longer. For the whole task of writing in IELTS, you will need 60 minutes. That includes planning both essays. You need to spend 20 minutes on Part 1 and 40 minutes on Part 2, including planning. If you've not completed Part 1 within 20 minutes, leave it. Really, leave it. Why? Part 2 is worth more to you than Part 1, so it makes sense to spend the most time on the part that gives you the best score. Let's assume you get 3/4 of the way through Part 1. You've made yourself eligible for 75% of possible mark. Part 2 is worth a lot more marks, and if you leave it short, you will lose much more than you will if you lose a little bit on Part 1. Perhaps, if you are organised, as you will be after taking these lessons because you will know what to do, and you have some time at the end of part 2, you can go back and complete part 1. Practice makes perfect. Get some questions from IELTSbuddy.com. Sit there with a clock, practice writing for 20 minutes. Plan your essay and write it in 20 minutes. Here's a surprise, a pleasant surprise. Unlike you have probably been led to believe, you do not need an extensive vocabulary to do well in part 1 of the IELTS writing tests. And we will discuss this in the next lesson or two. This surprises a lot of people because they believe they need to have very good English to do this. No, you don't. The secret to acing the IELTS exam is to understand it is a strategy exam, not a language exam. Of course, you do need to be able to speak English reasonably well. To sum up the writing task for academic IELTS, the writing test is 60 minutes long. In task 1, you need to write 160 words and spend about 20 minutes. Task 2, you need about 250 words and you need to spend 40 minutes on it. Part 1 describes a graph, a diagram, a table or a chart. And Part 2 is a discursive or argumentative style essay. Now we know a bit about how the IELTS writing works. Get ready for some serious work. Next lesson will be on the vocabulary of graphs. And as I mentioned earlier, you do not need a large vocabulary to do well in this. You will be pleasantly surprised.